and welcome to our fifth podcast in this series, the second of the year, and it's a really exciting moment for all of us to welcome Lubomira Rochet, another winner of Global Marketer of the Year back in 2019. And I've been really enjoying looking at the videos you generously shared about your incredible journey at L'Oreal. But Lubomira, if I could start by asking you about your personal journey. I mean, most important question, of course, in these times is how are you? How are you coping? But then I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your background, which is fascinating.
I'm okay. It starts to be long and it's complicated because nobody has a very clear visibility in terms of when that will end and if that will end soon. But I guess we're okay. We're resilient people at L'Oreal.
Good. Oh, and where do I find you? Are you are you at home or in the office? Where are you?
I'm in the office. We have a policy of where we can go one day back at the office and the rest is work from home. And for my part, it's usually on Friday, so that I can share a little bit of space, have a lunch with someone with 2-3 meters of distancing, but it's still something. So we're enjoying every moment.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that's your office. I mean, it's dedication beyond the call of duty to have a wall like that at home.
True.
And I'm also delighted to see your WFA award just over the back of your head there. But anyway, what about, I know that you're Bulgarian by birth. You came to France at the tender age of 12, and I think that's driven some of your thinking about diversity and inclusion. But can you share a little bit of your personal story? I know everybody would love to hear that.
So I was born in Bulgaria a few years ago in Sofia. And my mom and my dad were Bulgarian, and so then I joined my mom. She was a biology teacher in Morocco, and so I ended up living in Morocco at age 6, and then moved to France, and then to the US, and then to Belgium. So I had a pretty cool opportunities to see and experiment different cultures, different people, and this has shaped me in so many ways. And I think it has helped me a lot in my job, in fact. And maybe one of the reasons why is, when you're busy doing transformation, I think it helps a lot to start from a position of respect, understanding of the people and the culture. It's true when you move from one country to another, but it's also true when you start in a new company, like I did 7 years ago at L'Oreal. And I really spend a lot of time just very quietly observing, understanding the codes, the culture, the ways of working, the beliefs. And this is how you start creating a space where you can, by respecting this space, have a different voice or a different perspective. And I think this really helped me in that dimension. And of course, starting from a position of respect means also that I try to have an as diverse team as possible and hopefully as inclusive as possible. We have in my team more than 25 nationalities, and we enjoy that very much.
That's fantastic. And I do think when I was looking up L'Oreal, it's impressive to see that your board is one of the few boards that has 50-50 men, women, 14 directors, also very progressive in that you have 2 employees that are on the board. And I see your executive committee, which, by the way, must be unwieldy, 21 people, but 6 of them are women. And actually, good to see that kind of corporate governance and commitment to diversity. Do you feel that? Is there a tone from the top that you recognize?
There absolutely is. Our HRD, our Chief People Officer, Jean-Claude Legrand, he has been pioneering this approach for 15 years. And so it's not something new that we discovered recently. It's a very authentic commitment. It has started by, identifying women having pipes, really helping them and supporting them in many ways, and especially in their own belief and self-confidence to take the next job and the next job, and it has been really a wonderful culture for that. Yes.
Oh, that's great. And I think the other thing that I was really impressed by, and by the way, I heartily recommend everybody looks at the L'Oreal masterclasses, which are available free. I understand that was your idea to generously share all of your learning online. and I watched the one that you talk about on the digital transformation journey. A remarkable view, actually, and anybody that's interested in digital acceleration, by the way, anybody that isn't, what are you doing? should look at this. But in that, I mean, some of the thing that really struck me is the reverse mentoring and the education of 46,000 people so that they could become what you are, and I love this description, by the way, a digital athlete. Could you tell us a little bit about how you managed to transform the people? Because tech transformation is one thing, but getting everybody digitally fit, really fascinating subject.
Yeah, I think sometimes people mistake the digital transformation for a tech transformation. Of course, there is a big technological dimension, but what is more important is that I think it starts with the understanding that digital is not an expertise, but it's a new world. It's the new way of doing business. Today we are having more than about 27% of our sales that are in digital. We believe that soon and one day it will be 50%. More than 65% of our media are digital. And, 80% of all the interactions we have with our consumers, they happen online. So digital is not like a tech expertise on the side. It's the new way of interacting with your consumers, promoting things to your consumers, selling to your consumers. So this is really where we started from. And the idea was then, if that is true, then we don't need to create a silo of digital people and digital experts on the side. We really need to be transforming the companies and adding digital to the capability and the skill of everybody else. So this is why we started really with this very strong HR transformation from recruitment to organizational design and also the big upskilling program that you kindly mentioned. We've trained 50,000 employees out of the 80,000 through a variety of formats, a lot of action learning, a lot of learning on the job. But it all started from this belief that we had to embed digital into sales, into communication, into marketing, into research, into supply chain, and not create a separated silo on the side.
Which is fantastic. And if I may say, visionary, because you didn't start this last year, you started this back in 2014, and I think what you will emerge at the end of COVID, and apologies to talk about COVID like this, you will be one of the companies that's an absolute winner and is stronger because the acceleration of digital and e-commerce is something you were ready for. And I think I read that the sales you achieved in 3 years, you doubled in 3 months last year.
In 8 weeks, yeah.
And actually what you managed to do was rebalance the loss of the high street and the beauty parlor with online. But obviously e-commerce you were fit for. But let me ask you a daft question. Things like returns, so people buy something and they're not happy. How did you deal with that? Because as this world has switched to e-commerce, it is intriguing to watch companies struggle with supply chain, struggle with things like returns. But what about in your space?
I think returns is less an issue for us than for fashion, for example. But supply chain is a real thing. So I'm going to give you some examples. What happened when COVID hit, when our salons were closed. We're working with millions of salons across the world with our professional products division. Suddenly we saw surge into hair color searches and demand by 500-600%. So we had to completely re-engineer all our plans, all our forecasts, and to deliver millions and millions of parcels of hair color products to our consumers through e-commerce, through Amazon, through Carrefour, through DM, through Walmart. And that was a huge thing. It really taught us that data and real-time agility were absolutely key in this new world. And yeah, we were ready to some extent. I mean, you're never ready to have a 600% increase in the demand for one specific product from one day to another. The same phenomenon is happening, by the way, with TikTok. So the latest, Gen Z darling, we've seen again, a 4-digit growth for products that were featured by, skincare influencers or makeup influencers on TikTok, the likes of CeraVe with Hyram or telescopic, mascara, things like that. And we saw surges. And this is really where the supply chain is highly critical.
Yeah, I did want to talk to you about. You can tell my hair color didn't turn up on time, but never mind. Um, and how has it been to work through this? So, whenever I've touched companies and listened to them, the burden of working from home is not shared equally. It must have been tough. How have you coped with keeping your team strong, sane, looking after them, caring for them? What kind of things have you had in place?
Before COVID happened, L'Oréal was not a very, work from home culture. So we really moved from like very few percent of our people working from home to like 100%. And so it was a big question for us, like how would we go through that? And it went very well. It went very well. And I think if I speak about our teams, we are more than 3,000 of us in digital in L'Oréal. I think the first thing that helped is we had a very strong sense of purpose. A very, very strong sense of purpose. We knew that we were frontline when all the stores were closed, where the only way to reach consumers, to engage with consumers, to sell to our consumers was online. We knew we were frontlining the whole company. So the sense of purpose was tremendous. The sense of responsibility, the call of duty was tremendous. The priorities were very clear. In fact, what happened during COVID is nothing was really new. Everything was tremendously accelerated. So we had already built, let's say, the capabilities, the tech infrastructure. We had the talent in place, and we were able to step up and to ramp up. And the way we did it was very, very closely together. We had one Scrum meeting, one stand-up meeting every morning. We had weekly calls with all the communities, and again we launched something that really created bonds. We launched a virtual hackathon to invent the next beauty experience, and we thought like maybe some dozens of people would answer. We had more than 2,000 participants, more than 500 ideas came out of it. So, I mean, those are ways of interacting and create and continue to maintain the relationship between us. But the sense of purpose came first, I guess.
That's fantastic. And I know you personally, and I think L'Oréal are very committed to the notion of tech for good. But can we just touch on a couple of the potential downsides and how you've mitigated? I'm again very impressed by your concern around the ethics of data, and you've protected first-party data very carefully. But there's a darker side to influencer marketing as well, isn't there? And there's some kind of pressure on kids through times like this. How have you thought about that? What protections have you got in place? What could others learn?
We have all sorts of protection. First of all, we have a formal interdiction of advertising to kids or even to youngsters. We only advertise above 18 years old. We were very cautious with TikTok at the beginning because we knew that it was a clear concern on the platform. So we took it very cautiously, and we are only starting to get on the paid side of it on TikTok, for example. We are using a lot of precision advertising, so we tend to be very focused on the type of audience we want to reach. And we use all the tools that are available for that on the platforms. We are very cautious, of course, of not only respecting all the regulations and we are based in Europe, so we've went through GDPR, and so now we were kind of ready when CCPA happened and when more and more of those regulations will happen. To be honest, and we've I think understood early on and early enough that the world of advertising that was based on cookies would slowly disappear, and it's happening. In fact, we see what's happening with the iOS or with the browsers. We really see that cookies will not be the fuel of advertising and of consumer engagement any further. So we were the first, I think, to coin the cookieless world and to really re-engineer our first party data strategy towards creating a relationship with the consumer. So this is why we invested so heavily on the services aspect. So if I can explain, services for us are things like virtual makeup try-on or skincare diagnostics or teleconsultation with a beauty expert. And we believe that through those services, we create a value for our consumers. We create the value of letting them try shades online before buying a product. We create the value of recommending them the right skincare routine or having access to the right beauty expert. And through this value, we believe that they will be much more willing, in full transparency and, of course, with the consent, to give us their names, and so that we can start a relationship and not a retargeting relationship, a real relationship based on beauty concerns.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to the word you used earlier. Your respect for the customers shines through actually in the activity you have, which is great. And the notion that there should be a fair value exchange as well. So I have to confess, I haven't yet tried Modiface and what that would do to me. But, as I look at your use of tech as well, and actually, again, the generosity, and obviously there's an upside to L'Oréal of sharing Modiface with retailers as well. Can you talk about that? Because that's very interesting use of AI, AR, and all those other buzzwords that I could now drop.
So it's true that we were maybe the first to believe in the power of AR, of augmented reality in our business. We started like in 2014. It was even before I came. It was Guy Balouche from L'Oréal, a great guy, and he was the head of the beauty tech accelerator at the time in San Francisco, and he spotted a company doing augmented reality for beauty, and they made up, they came up with this idea of the makeup genius, which was the first iteration in L'Oréal of this makeup try-on through your mobile phone, where you were able to try shades. And so it inspired us very much, and then we started a good relationship with Modiface, and Modiface was the leader of augmented reality for beauty. And at some point, we had a very good relationship, but at some point we were like, this augmented reality thing is such a big trend into the industry, and it's a trend not only because it's a cool technology or because it's a great experience, but because it's actually solving a real consumer need and a real consumer issue, which is to be able to try before they buy. And especially for color, it's, color cosmetics is so important. And so we decided to do a big bet and to acquire our first beauty tech company in 2018, so 3 years ago. And it was a bet because, we're very used to acquire beauty brands, and we know very well how to integrate those beauty brands. But with a bunch of 70 geeks, engineers, and AR specialists out of Toronto, it was a bet, and it went really well. We are really a great family, and we use Modiface teams as our research and innovation for digital. And so their role is really to come up with all the ideas of new services that we can provide to our consumers. And at the beginning, of course, Modiface, when we acquired them, they were working for a lot of our competitors. So we decided that, it didn't make a lot of sense to continue to work with competitors, but we did the bold move of opening our Modiface technologies to third parties, and especially retailers and platforms. So we have embedded our makeup try-ons or skincare diagnostics or hair color try-ons into platforms like Amazon or DM or Boots or Lazada or Timo or WeChat or Facebook or Instagram. So we have more than 40 partnerships integrating our Modiface technology and our AR technology for letting our consumers try their product or get access to diagnostics everywhere they are shopping and looking for beauty. What is interesting is that we had measured the impact of having a service versus not having a service, and the conversion rates are multiplied by 3. So it has a very direct impact on sales.
It's amazing. And I also think, again, nice to see your generosity, and it's fair and respectful of partners as well as other brands. So can I kind of dig into a couple of more marketing-esque questions? I guess, given your enthusiasm that shines through for all things digital and how you've made it work, how have you encountered the world of marketing as it goes through this understanding of the need for transformation? And how have you balanced, respect for the old and innovating for the new?
I think the first thing is we are very lucky to have 36 amazing brands at L'Oréal, and this is our most precious assets. We are also very lucky to have more than 1 billion consumers buying and trusting us and our products. And so for me, the first thing, if you are working in, in marketing or in digital or, in a company, in fact, I think the first thing is to always start from your consumers and from understanding their desires, and also understanding their needs and solving their problems. So I think at the end, this is where marketing and technology are not very dissimilar. They share something very strong in common, is that if you work in technology, you will try to find a product market fit. And to find a product market fit, what you need to understand is what is the problem out there that your technology can solve. And in a way, it's very similar when you work in marketing, which is, what is the beauty problem that my brand or my product can solve. And I think that's the thing that is very, very similar. The thing that struck me at the beginning was the obsession with benchmarks and with best practices and benchmarks and all this work of understanding the competition and what it's doing, which is a little bit different in technology because usually you're inventing new things, and by definition benchmarks do not exist. So I think this is the thing I struggle a bit with at the beginning, and especially when you are operating in, at the time, something that as new as the digital transformation for a big company like L'Oréal. When they were asking me, what is the benchmark, who should we looking at, and I'm like, I don't know, we should write that story ourselves, and maybe we will become the benchmark for others. So I think that's the thing I struggle with at the beginning.
It's interesting. I mean, the end of my full-time career, I was working in the financial services sector, not a sector that chose to do digital transformation first. It was trying to kind of refit it in and caused all sorts of problems and enabled fintech to leap in because they looked at customers and what customer needs are and fulfilled them. It's not rocket science. Marketing has never been rocket science, but the complexity of a company shifting direction, that's a big decision. So, L'Oréal placed a big bet and you were winning anyway. But, I was talking with a couple of people before about this odd thing of which companies will have won when we get to the end of this terrible phase of the world we're in. And L'Oréal, I think, is going to be one of them. But actually, so much to learn from you. I would agree with that. And how do you recruit? Can we talk about, what you're looking for when you're recruiting into your team? What kind of mix of skills, backgrounds?
So that's a very good question. I'm personally convinced that the first thing to look is courage. Is courage. Yes, it's bravery, because when you're in the business of transformation, it's difficult. It's complicated. It's complicated because you have to, and especially in L'Oréal at the beginning, because L'Oréal, we were not music, we were not like tourism industry, we didn't have like a burning platform. When I started in 2014, we were doing a very good business, we were growing very comfortably, we had very good margins. And so we saw, indie brands, new brands, digital native brands, D2C, all of that. We saw it coming, but it was not like an existential threat to our business. And so it makes it even harder to push for a transformation. So the piece where I was, and I am very, very lucky, is that L'Oréal is a company that embraces transformation, embrace change, embrace innovation. I mean, it's company culture. This is something you cannot, you can't do anything about. And it was very positive. We saw digital as an opportunity to connect with new consumers. For example, in e-commerce, when we talk of countries like, China, India, Indonesia, where our mastery of deep trade was not as good as others, the e-commerce really allowed us to connect directly to consumers we wouldn't have touched in the previous world. So that was really an opportunity. And so back to the question, the first thing I'm looking for is courage. The second thing I'm looking for is empathy to understand.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, to understand both internally and externally, to understand internally, because when you're in the business of transformation, you're in the business of embarking organization and people to follow a vision and a path that is not natural. So you have to understand the drivers of the company, of the people, to have them exit from their comfort zone and embrace a new direction. And if you don't show empathy, if you don't show an understanding of how people think and do things, you're not going to succeed. And it's the same thing for consumers. If you don't show any empathy for your consumers, that's not going to work. So I would say courage and empathy. And of course, then we have so many backgrounds in the team. We have people coming from a very traditional, like, marketing backgrounds. We have people coming from data science. We have people coming from e-commerce, from telecom, from all sorts of industry, banking industry. So it's very, very diverse. But I overall think that soft skills tend to be even more important than hard skills today.
Good. Now, I was much taken by a Google study, actually, where they, presuming that what they always needed to do was to hire engineers, had a look at, so who have we promoted along the way and what's made people successful? And it was, of course, soft skills. So this combination, which I've always described as the future, is going to be a combination of high tech and high touch, whichever industry you're in. If you need a human being, you better have a great one. You better have some empathy at the other end. But if you need tech that works seamlessly and gives you value, you need that too. But I do think you've really led the way for all sorts of other companies. So it's interesting is that I don't like that debate that runs and runs about, is the role of CMO dead, and all these other titles, because you are, whilst you're called the Chief Digital Officer, you're also a marketeer. What would you say your colleagues at the Exco table see as your core expertise, digital or marketing, or what would they see you bring to the table?
Transformation. I think that this is really what I brought. And in fact, I'm not interested in titles at all. And I'm not even interested in compartments, because I think that those compartments prevents you from thinking. At the beginning, if, as a chief digital officer, I could have focused only on the maybe digital marketing part, and that would have been a mistake, because one of the biggest driver was the digitalization of the sales and the e-commerce. So if you were too much, and I think that was really my luck, in fact, because when I came into this industry, I've never done FMCG, I've never done like beauty before, I actually never done marketing. And so in fact, it allowed me to really think freely and to start from the consumer. And what I saw is that what digital allowed us was to do three things. The first thing was to create a new channel for growth and recruitment, which was e-commerce. So that was the first objective, which was to really accelerate our path on e-commerce, to connect with our consumers there. And it was good because, what we saw is a massive channel shift from brick and mortar to digital, and we were able to really anticipate and ride that. The second thing I saw was that we didn't have any direct and personalized relationship with our consumers. As a company, we were operating in a B2B mode. By the way, we were selling to customers, and those customers were selling to our clients. And it was the retailers who had the data, not us. And so the second objective was really to create ways of getting to know better our consumers through data and through relationships. And the third objective was really about, I was seeing that the classical world of marketing, which was very much TVC centric, which was very much campaign based, was kind of driving at the limits. And what I saw was that, of course, people were spending more and more time on digital channels. Of course, people were consuming different types of content. Of course, people were not interested on just campaigns, but on an always on evergreen presence of the brand. Of course, people were trusting other people and influencers and peers. So all of that came because I didn't know marketing and because I was not a marketer. And so this is how I was able to maybe frame this job, which didn't exist, in a way that we could solve actually the companies and the consumer problems. So I think sometimes it's good to not to know.
The benefit of ignorance. I agree with that. Fantastic. Wonderful exposition and inspiration to everybody there. So I also see, when I look at things like Glassdoor, what you have is people who love working for L'Oreal, who recommend highly to others to work there, who have great respect for the CEO. And again, you've got a good succession underway. I know that was announced this morning as well. So your graduate recruitment and your getting people in, you seem to get the best share of talent as well. Do you personally look for talent across the company, or have you got a funnel coming into your world of graduates and interns?
So I think if I'm not mistaken, that L'Oréal as a whole receives more than 1 million CVs every year. So of course there's a natural influx of application, and when I started, the first thing was really about, let's never create an us versus them culture, right? The digital guys, the modern guys, and the others, right? So very very soon, when I created my team, I mean, we started, we were two people, three in fact, and one left, and so we were two people to start the whole thing. And one of the first inspiration I had was to say, we, like digital people, we know digital, but we don't really know the business of beauty. And so I really wanted to pair our digital expertise with the beauty expertise that only L'Oréal people could bring. And so this is how we started to mix in the CDO team, which was supposed to be like the most advanced, the most expert team. We started to really mix L'Oréal people, traditional tracks, like, in sales or in marketing or in communication or in HR or whatever, anything, and also people coming from the outside. And I think this mix made us so much stronger, because the people, the L'Oréal people that came to the team, we upskilled them. And when they went back to take a business or a brand, they knew everything about digital, so they could be our ambassador. It was an advocacy program, in fact, that we did internally. And what is interesting also is that I really believe in pairs, in having two people in duets. And I think, for example, we have what we call factories, so digital factories. So factories to produce websites, or to produce data, or to produce services with Modiface. And what I've done is to have two people leading those factories, one person from a business background and another person from a more digital or technical background, and this is how the magic happens.
That's fantastic. And again, I mean, that whole notion of mentoring, I think, is key. It's a bit like, I'm the lucky father of three sons who taught me about digital, because at my age, I'm not a native, I was never going to be, but I'm not entirely stupid either. We've already touched a little bit on trends and the future, but again, I was much taken by your description of Retailtainment and how you're seeing that emerging, particularly. I guess it is a byproduct of, because people have been locked down at home, their use of digital and the way they've engaged has accelerated beyond things that we might have imagined. But can you talk a little bit about your experience of Retailtainment? I know that came in 6 varieties, I think I saw that, and how you see that coming and what trends others can expect to come their way.
Retailtainment is a concept we believe in. But it's the contraction of retail and entertainment. We've been very inspired with what was happening in China, of course. And it's true that if you look at the e-commerce experience, it has not really changed in the past 20 years, right? It's essentially product detail pages with product description, some beautiful images, A+ content, and a funnel and a cart, and voila. And when we saw at the beginning of social commerce, of live streaming, of the reinvention of teleshopping, with interactive comments, emojis, lucky charms, the inspiration of the gaming industry that becomes really front and center in many of the experience that we see, we really believe that the e-commerce experience is changing. It's much more immersive, it's much more interactive, and it's faster, and it's really faster. It's a lot about content, it's a lot about interaction, and so this is where we believe that this is going to spill over in many other markets. And we have seen, by the way, during COVID, that live streaming has become mainstream. We've seen social commerce pick up here and there in Europe, in the US, and so this is a whole space that is super exciting. And we have launched Brandstorm. Brandstorm it's a game. It's an education game that we play for years and years with lots of students from everywhere in the world being able to participate. And this year, it's a business game, and this year theme was the reinvention of shopping through entertainment. So we really have crowdsourced this notion of retailtainment to the students everywhere in the world, and I'm really looking forward to new ideas there to change and to make this shopping experience even more exciting.
Fantastic. And I know you also describe the L'Oréal culture as a learning culture. What learning do you think we've had through COVID that's going to stick? I mean, but let's start with you personally. I mean, what's the thing that you've learnt in this phase?
What did I learn through this phase? That's a good question. I think that this type of crisis really reveal people. It's more. I would frame it more through the reveal than the learning. You learn after. When you're in the middle of such a thing, you just act, and then you think. And I think we were really good in reacting, in acting fast, in reallocating our media, in reallocating our investments, in reallocating our times, in reallocating our priorities. So I guess this plasticity of the capacity to re-engineer yourself individually and as a company has been really the key. I don't know if it's a learning, but the key obvious for me, and it makes a difference between the companies that are able to do it or not. The second thing that was so instrumental, and back to the concept of learning companies, data. And again, I think that we should put, like technology, we should put data and technology at the place they belong, which is not a finality, which is not an end game, but which is an enabler. And it's true that since the beginning of this transformation, we have worked to collect meaningful data. I'm not talking about consumer data. I'm talking about like business data to be able to learn. And we have built a whole tool that we call the cockpit. We have more than 1 billion line of code in this thing. It's scrolling hundreds and hundreds of data sources, basically in terms of every marketing activation we do, in media, in content, in CRM, with influencers. Every campaign is monitored. Every campaign we have, the numbers, the performance, the ROI we are able to calculate, and this we use not only to allocate our media better or to optimize our campaigns, but we use it to learn what works and what doesn't work. And this is how we infer what we call the golden rules. And we have now in a way framed golden rules for media execution on YouTube, on Facebook, on search. We are starting to do it on TikTok. We have tested and learned what works in terms of content, the length, the size, the vertical, the type of content, the colors, the cinematic of the content. All of that, we have a learning agenda, and we test and learn. And then with the data, we are able to infer those golden rules, and then we are able to process that back to the business. Because what we saw is that, in the company that has done TVCs for the past 50 years, everybody knows in L'Oréal how to do a good TVC. And the difference between a very good execution in TVC and a mediocre or a bad execution in TVC is very tiny. But the difference with digital, with a very good execution and the very bad execution, is very huge. And so we really had to, in a way, standardize or normalize our performance. And this is how we use the data, how we become the learning company. It's not a culture thing only, it's also a data play. And this is how we, through the existence and the regular updating of those golden rules, we're able to funnel that back to all our teams so that they get a better job done every day.
And how do you manage the corporate brand? Or because obviously you carry the burden in a way of having a corporate brand that was built through advertising as well. And actually what you've got now is when you go down the funnel, you're not really doing that. How do you look after the corporate brand?
We have a new purpose now, a new sense of purpose, and I love it. It says we create beauty that moves the world, and I really like it because, of course, there's a notion of movement, of dynamism, of innovation, because L'Oréal is always on the outlook for new. So one of our founder had this sentence, which is much better in French, which is saisir ce qui commence, which it translates badly into seize what is starting. But this appetite for new is something that is, of course, making us and all the market move. But it's also this notion of moving and of emotional and of emotion around beauty, and we see more and more that this is the most important part of our business. It's creating emotions, supporting people in their self-expression, in their identity, in building their own identity through their personality, and make them shine and empower them to be whoever they want to be. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do.
I think so too. And can I just say, you're leading personally by example, because what a delight to talk to you, because your enthusiasm and your commitment shines through, and you're enjoying yourself. I mean, what's not to love about jobs that give you that kind of level of enjoyment? So as we get to the tail end of this, Lubomira, a couple of things. I mean, what is the one biggest issue for your colleagues who are leading the marketing function around the world at the moment elsewhere? What do you think they're going to need to focus on in 2021?
That's a tough one, but I think there's something that is looming, which is I would call it the big blurring. Before there was a clear separation between the platforms for brand building and the platforms for transactional and for e-commerce, right? Today, the store is the media, because Amazon is becoming one of the big, advertising giants. It's, after the duopoly, Google and Facebook, now we have a third one, which is Amazon is clearly getting market shares in this advertising business. And it's interesting because now you see brands starting from Amazon, as we saw, brands starting from Instagram, as we see brands starting from TikTok. We have brands that are really starting out of the Amazon platform. And I think this is fascinating because Amazon is not just an e-commerce platform. So media, the store is the media, and the media is the store. Because when we see all the it's more than efforts. It's like big programs around Facebook shops or Instagram shopping, or all the efforts that the big giants are doing to make their platforms selling platforms. It's interesting how everything is blurring. And TikTok is soon to become an e-commerce force to be reckoned with. So I think this big blurring is sometimes complicated for some people to kind of grasp and navigate. But I think that we're looking at it as amazing opportunities to be reaching even more people, even more consumers across all generations and all ages, and that's gonna be fascinating.
All right, so we should watch out for the big blurring. I love that. So, and another obligatory question to answer here is, as we build out this podcast, who else would you like to see? Who should we be inviting to sit in your seat and talk to the WFA audience?
The guys from Peloton. I think it's interesting. I mean, all those, what we see, and I think it's fascinating is how everything is becoming a program. If you look at Weight Watchers, Peloton, if you look at the sleep apps, the mental health apps, the nutrition app, see all that. It's really moving from a product-dominated world to a service that is making you fit or helping you with your nutrition or with your sleep or your mental health. And I think this is a really interesting notion. And for us, for example, we are starting to think really our brands as programs. The programmatic beauty. What does that mean? For example, for skincare, it could work so well. So, and it's interesting also because for brands like, us or in the FMCG world, the big thing was to acquire consumers. So this is where we were driving media to drive traffic and to acquire consumers. Today, the big battle is how to retain your consumers, because the consumer acquisition costs are gonna go up. That's written. And so the key question is, how can you go beyond media and imagine beauty programs or sleep programs or fitness program where you can have a community that is gathered around your service and not only your product, and increase lifetime value, increase loyalty. I think those are very interesting models. Everything that is around subscription is very interesting, and I think it's a place to watch out.
It is, and I know in the US you have a subscription that I could benefit from, which is the hair color.
The Color & Co.
Another day, maybe. Well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your learning. And for those that would like to learn more, there's some fabulous content available about the L'Oreal journey and lots to learn. So thank you again. I wish you a wonderful Valentine's Day weekend. That's when we're recording it. And to everybody else, we'll see you again in March. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me.